Good morning everyone. In this video, I'm going to explain on the topics DC load line, operating point and stability factor. Before going to the concept of what is DC load line or operating point, let us recollect few topics that has been studied in the previous classes. What is a bipolar junction transistor? A transistor is a three-terminal device and the three terminals are base, emitter and collector, and this transistor can be operated in three configurations, namely common emitter configuration, common base configuration and common collector configuration. So based on the configuration the transistor has been operated, it can be used as a voltage amplification or for a current amplification circuit. And how the amplification has been done in a transistor. So the amplification in the transistor can be achieved by passing a input current signal from a region of low resistance to the high resistance. That's why it's given the name as a transistor. Transistor is nothing but it's a transfer resistor. So next we'll see the types of transistor. The transistor can be classified into two types. One is a unipolar junction transistor. The other one is called as a bipolar junction transistor. Okay, what is a unipolar junction transistor? The current conduction in unipolar junction transistor is done only due to one type of charge carrier, that is majority carrier. Then what is a bipolar junction transistor? The current conduction occurs in bipolar junction based on both the type of charge carriers, that is both holes and electrons are being used. Next, we'll see the comparison of all the three transistor configuration. The first characteristic is input resistance. The input resistance for a common base configuration will be very low, and it will be low for a common emitter, and it will be high for a common collector configuration. Next is your output resistance. The output resistance will be very high for the common base case, and it will be high for the common emitter, and it will be low for the common collector configuration. So next, if you look at the input current and output current of all the three configurations. So what is a common base? Common base is nothing but the base terminal of a transistor will be common for the input emitter and output collector. And common emitter is nothing but the emitter terminal will be common between the input base and the output collector. And common collector is nothing but the collector terminal will be common for the input base and the output emitter. So the input current is nothing but input current for the common base is nothing but is the emitter current, and for the common emitter it is a base, and for the common collector also it's a base current. And the output current for the common base will be collector current, and for the common emitter it will be collector current, and for the common collector it will be emitter current. So based on the input current and output current, you can write the current amplification factor for all the three configurations. The current amplification factor is nothing but it is a ratio between the output current to the input current. For the common base, the current amplification is be denoted by alpha, where alpha is given by output current by input current, which is nothing but IC divided by IE. And common emitter, the current amplification factor is denoted by beta, where beta is equal to output current IC divided by input current IB, and the current amplification factor for the common collector is given by IE divided by IB. Next, we'll see what about the current gain of all the three configurations. So the common base will offer a very less current gain, that is less than unity, and the current gain for the common emitter will be high, that is ranges from 20 to few hundreds, and for the common collector also the current gain will be high. Next will come with the voltage gain of all the three cases. The voltage gain for the common base will be medium, for the common emitter will be medium, and it will be low for the case of common collector configuration. Next we'll see the in which application all the three configurations can be applicable. The common base can be used as the input stage of multi-stage amplifier application, and the common emitter will be used for the audio signal amplification, and the common collector can be used for the impedance matching purpose. Okay, the next question is that amongst the three type of configuration, which configuration is the most commonly used type of configuration in the amplifier circuit? So on seeing all the comparison of all the three characteristic of all the three configuration, we can conclude that the common emitter configuration is a widely used in amplifier circuit because it is providing both very high voltage gain as well as current gain, because the voltage and current gain for your common emitter configuration will be greater than unity. Next, we will discuss about what is called by biasing and what is the need for biasing. The biasing of a transistor is considered to be a purely DC operation, and biasing is nothing but applying some DC voltage of correct magnitude to the two junctions of the transistors is called as biasing of a transistor. Then what is the need for biasing? By applying this proper biasing, we can make the transistor to be operated in three regions. So you're familiar that the transistor can be operated in three regions. There are cutoff region, active region, and saturation region. Okay. So next we'll see what are the modes of operation, how to make a transistor to operate in all the three regions. If you want to make a transistor to operate in an active region, then the emitter base junction of the transistor must be forward biased and the collector base junction of the transistor must be reverse biased. In that case, we can make a transistor to act as a normal amplifier application. Next one, if you want to make a transistor to operate as in a cutoff region, then both the emitter base junction as well as the collector base junction of the transistor must be reverse biased. In that case, the transistor will be operated as a open switch. And if you want to make a transistor to operate in a saturation region, then both the emitter base junction as well as collector base junction of a transistor must be forward biased. So a transistor can be act as a closed switched. Next, we'll see about what is DC operating point or quiescent point. By applying bias to the transistor, certain current and voltage conditions will be established for the transistor. These conditions are known as DC operating point. So for the proper operation of the transistor, this operating point located in the transistor must be stable, but the operating point will be shifting in the changes in transistor parameter. Now let us see what are the transistor parameter which will cause the operating point to be unstable. The first transistor parameter is a beta, which is nothing but current amplification factor of a common emitter circuit, and ICO is nothing but as a reverse saturation current, and VBE is a base emitter voltage. So change of any one of these transistor parameter will cause a change in the operating point of a transistor. Next, we'll see about what you call by a DC load line and how to plot a DC load line in the output characteristic of any transistor circuit. DC load line is nothing but a straight line that is drawn on the output characteristic of a transistor circuit, and by drawing this DC line we can get a value of IC and VCE for a common emitter transistor, and this is being applicable only under no AC signal condition. Okay, now let us look at the diagram shown here. Here the diagram shows a common emitter output characteristic curve, but the x-axis is a VCE and the y-axis of a common emitter circuit is IC with a constant IB current. Okay, if you draw a line joining between A and B, this line is called as a DC load line, and if you plot some point, the intersection point of this DC load line with the IB points will give the quiescent point. Now let us see how to draw a DC load line in the output characteristic curve of a common emitter circuit. Consider a common emitter amplifier circuit shown in figure. The emitter terminal is considered to be common to the input base and the output collector. Here the capacitor CC is called as a coupling capacitor. The capacitor that is present in the emitter terminal is called as a bypass capacitor. And Vs is considered to be the AC signal applied as an input to the common emitter amplifier circuit. Now let us see what is the condition to do the DC analysis of a circuit. So to do the DC analysis of any amplifier circuit, certain conditions to be followed. The first thing is that the DC analysis is done under no AC signal condition. That is, the AC signal must be equal to 0 or should not apply any AC signal to the circuit. In such case, this capacitance will produce a very high reactance, so the capacitance will be considered to be open circuited. So if the capacitance are all considered to be open circuited, then this part will be removed from the circuit. So the remaining part to be considered for the DC analysis will be given by R1, R2, RC, VCC, the transistor part, and the RE and the ground terminal. Now let us see how to draw a DC load line from a fixed bias circuit, which is shown here. So this is a fixed bias circuit. Now let us see the operation of fixed bias and how we draw a DC load line of a fixed bias circuit. So RB is nothing but the resistance that is present in between the base of the terminal to the VCC, and the current that flows through the RB is given by the base current IB, and RCB the resistance that is present between the VCC and collector of the transistors, and the current that flows through the RC is given by IC, and the voltage between collector and emitter terminal is given by VCE, and the voltage between base and emitter will be given by VBE, and RE is the emitter resistance, and the current that flows through the emitter resistance will be given by IE. So this circuit is already in a DC bias condition because the capacitance part and the AC signal has been removed from the circuit. Now let us see the analysis of the fixed bias circuit. So we are going to apply the KVL to the collector circuit. So which is considered to be the collector circuit here. The output side over here is considered to be the collector part. It is starting from VCC, RC, VCE, RE and the ground terminal. This particular part is considered to be the output circuit or a collector circuit. So I can redraw this circuit alone as the one part of the VCC is connected to the resistor RC. The other part of the resistor, that is the negative part of the resistor, is being grounded. So I can draw this output side circuit as VCC plus is connected to RC. The negative part is being grounded. So I'm going to apply the KVL to the output loop. So if I apply the KVL, the total voltage that is present in the circuit is given by VCC, and the current IC flows through RC. So we'll be getting a voltage drop across RC, and there will be some voltage across your collector emitter terminal, which is considered a VCE. And since the current IE flows through RE, we'll be getting a voltage drop across RE. So the Kirchhoff's voltage law for the output loop is given by the total voltage VCC minus IC into RC minus VCE minus IE into RE equal to 0. So here the collector current is same, almost same to equal to the emitter current. So we'll be taking IE is approximately equal to IC. So in the place of IE, I'm going to replace the collector current. So the equation will become VCC minus ICRC minus ICRE minus VC equal to 0. So from this, all the IC terms has been taken to the other side. From that, IC is commonly taken outside. So VCC minus VCE equal to IC into RC plus RE, where IC equal to VCC minus VCE divided by RC plus RE. So I'm just going to split this equation, and it can be written as IC equal to minus VCE divided by RC plus RE plus VCC divided by RC plus RE, and the RC and RE is going to be replaced by a single resistance as RDC. So in the place of RC plus RE, I'm going to substitute RDC. So the collector current can be written as minus 1 by RDC into VCE plus VCC divided by RDC. Consider this is equation number 1. Now this equation is going to be compared with the straight line of equation. So we know that equation of a straight line can be given by y is equal to mx plus c, where m denotes the slope of the line and c denotes the intercept on y-axis. Now this is considered to be equation number 2. Just comparing equation 1 and 2, we can write that the slope of the line will be equal to minus 1 by RDC in the collector current equation, and the intercept on y-axis is given by VCC divided by RDC. Now let us see how to draw a DC load line in the output characteristic of a common emitter amplifier circuit. So to determine the 2 points, that is point A and point B on the line, we have to make the 2 assumptions. That is, the first assumption is that the collector emitter terminal must be equal to VCC and the collector emitter terminal must be equal to 0. If you substitute these 2 equations, I can get 2 points on the output characteristic of a common emitter amplifier circuit. Now we'll go back to the circuit. Go back to the circuit diagram of the output characteristic graph. So here we want to find what is a point A and what is a point B. So if we find what is the value of a point A and point B, then by joining the two lines will give the DC load line, and wherever the DC load line is being intersecting with the IP current will be denoting the Q point, fusion point. Now we'll see how to get this point A and point B from the fixed bias circuit. So first I'm going to find what is my point A. To find the point A, I'm going to make the assumption that VCE equal to VCC. So I'm going to substitute this equation in the case of the collector current equation. So VCE is going to replace by VCC. So this part is going to be replaced by VCC. So minus VCC divided by RDC plus VCC divided by RDC. This term will get cancelled. So I can write this as IC will be equal to 0. So if I substitute VCE is equal to VCC, then I'm getting the collector current at equal to 0. That will give my point A. Next, we'll see how to find the point B. So for finding point B, I'm going to substitute VCE equal to 0 in the case of the collector current equation. So I'm going to substitute here as 0. If I substitute this particular part as 0, this will become 0. So my collector current will be equal to VCC divided by RDC. That will give my point B. So the 2 points I'm getting from the output characteristic curves are, one is A, where A is obtained as when VCE is equal to VCC. At that time, my IC will be equal to 0. And the second condition is that when VCE is equal to 0, I'll be getting my IC equal to VCC divided by RDC. So by finding these 2 points, we can join the 2 points and we can get a DC load line in the output characteristic of a common emitter curve, and the intersection of this IB curve with the DC load line will be given the fusion point. So the intersection of IB curve and DC load line is the operating point, and this operating point is considered to be the fixed point. By knowing any one of the value of a collector current, by the IC current, I can get the other two values from the characteristic curve. If I come to know IB value, then the other two parameters can be easily calculated. So next we'll see about the selection of operating point. From the previous fixed bias circuit, we have seen how to draw a DC load line, and the operating point can be selected at 3 different positions on the DC load line. But the selection of this Q point or operating point must be purely depends on what is the type of application we are going to choose it. So for example, if I want to make my transistor to operate as a proper amplifier, that is my output signal to be a pure amplified version of the signal without any distortion, then I should choose my biasing point in such a case that the Q point should be selected at the center of the DC load line. Now let us see this in detail with some cases where we can choose the Q point in the DC load line. Now let us first see the first case. So here in this diagram, the biasing circuit is designed in such a case that it is going to fix a Q point at point B. So I'm going to select the Q point at point B as shown in the figure. And if you look at that here, this particular Q point is considered to be near the saturation region of the transistor. So because it has been present near the saturation region, even if we apply a pure sinusoidal wave in the base of the transistor, so we'll be getting some clipping in the output of a signal. So the here diagram shows that we are getting a clipping at the positive point of the signal. So this particular part of the signal is getting clipped or positive clipping if we choose a Q point near the saturation region. And second thing is that case 2. So I'm going to make my biasing circuit to be designed in such a case that the Q point is going to be chosen at the point R. The fusion point is going to choose at the Q point R, and this point R is considered to be very near to the cutoff region. So as shown in the figure. So what will happen is that I'm going to get a collector current clipped at the negative clipping. The collector current clipping I'm getting at the negative part of my signal occurs. So this is for the case 2. Okay, next is the case 3. So in the case 3, what I'm going to do is that the biasing circuit will be designed in such a case that the we are going to fix the Q point at the center of Q. So I'm going to fix the Q point at the center point. Now this Q point is at the active region of my transistor. So the output signal I'm getting without any distortion. So from the three cases, it is clear that we must properly select the operating point of a transistor by means of applying a proper biasing circuit to a transistor. So this biasing circuit will be designed in such a case that it has to choose the Q point at the center of the active region of a transistor in order to avoid the distortion in the output signal. Next, we'll see the requirement of a biasing circuit. The emitter base junction of a transistor must be forward biased and the collector base junction of a transistor must be reverse biased. That is, the transistor should be always operated only at the middle of the active region, or the quiescent point should be chosen to be fixed at the center of the active region. The second requirement is the biasing circuit should be designed in such a case that it should provide very high degree of thermal stability. And third requirement of a biasing circuit is the Q point should be always made to be independent of the beta. The beta is considered to be one of the transistor parameter. That is, if there is any change in the beta value, also the Q point should remain constant. To maintain the operating point stable by keeping IC and VCE constant, two techniques is normally used. The first technique we called as stabilization technique, and second technique is called as a compensation technique. Next, we'll see what we call by a stability factor. Stability factor indicates degree of change in operating point due to variation in temperature. So in order to compare the performance of various biasing circuit, this stability factor will be used. There are three variables which are considered to be the temperature dependent, and based on these three variables, the stability factor can be defined by three different formulas. The first one, it is defined as the rate of change of collector current IC with respect to collector base leakage current ICO by keeping IB and current gain beta constant. That is, S is equal to dou IC by dou ICO. That is, change in collector current with respect to the reverse saturation current with beta and IB constant. So we know that the collector current for a common emitter amplifier will be given by this equation. IC is equal to beta IB plus 1 plus beta into ICO. So consider this is equation number 1. We are going to differentiate the equation number 1 with respect to IC. So I can write this equation as DIC by DIC is equal to beta DIB by DIC plus DICO divided by DIC into 1 plus beta. So this term is nothing but is given by DICO divided by DIC is the reverse of S stability factor S. So can replace here as 1 by S. So the next equation is differentiating IC by IC. This will become 1. And I'm going to bring this term to the other side. So 1 plus beta by S is equal to 1 minus beta into DIB by DIC. The stability factor S is given by the formula 1 plus beta divided by 1 minus S is equal to 1 plus beta. I'm bringing this term to here. 1 plus beta divided by 1 minus beta into DIB by DIC. So this is considered to be the equation number 2. So this equation 2 is considered to be the standard equation which is used for the derivation of the stability factor for any biasing circuit. Now let us see the second stability factor equation definition. The stability factor S dash. Already we have used the notation S for the first one, so you are using the S dash. It can be defined as rate of change of IC with respect to VBE, and we are going to keep ICO and beta constant. So dou IC by dou VBE with the ICO and the beta constant. And the third definition is we are going to change the IC collector current with respect to change in the beta value, and the remaining two parameter, that is VBE and the IC, is going to remain constant. So the stability factor S double dash is defined as the rate of change of IC with respect to beta keeping ICO and beta constant. So these are the three different definition for the stability factor based on the three different variables which are considered to be the temperature dependent one. Thank you.